It's Friday night. We're on early because, well, our guest, the birthday boy himself, is going to come on a little later. But to get things started, I've got my guys here to talk about some different things here in the world of sports. We'll mix in WWE in about an hour worth of time. I got Randy Dillon, host of the Hockey Fan Chat, also dabbled in the world of wrestling for a brief period. TBK, podcaster sometimes, expert sometimes. Everything else we'll find out. Rob Maraska, 1968 Met diehard. Neil Berliner is still talking about that. I still don't know anything about Neil Berliner after that interview, but it was funny. It was interesting. And Rob is the contest man. He is the co-host of the New York MLB Talk and also the other co-host of the New York MLB Talk and the Liftoff Jets, Mr. Chris Bazaya. And we will lift off, fellas, with you guys over the next hour. And happy Friday and good to be with y'all.
What's up?
Friday, y'all.
Hey.
Good. We'll try to mix in everything. I got football, Major League Baseball. I'll do WWE, and we'll get it all in. And I guess since I got Rob and Chris here, and I got to do the obligatory baseball because Rob's the baseball guy, Chris is the baseball guy, although Chris will probably come in for football. Yankees looks like the Yankees season, for those that are listening and watching and in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform where certainly all sports matters, all King's X matters, and all wrestling matters end before it even started. Garrett Cole's down, and Luis Heel looks like he's down for a while. And according to some, Giancarlo Stanton can't even lift almost a paper bag over his head. And has the Yankees season, fellas, ended before it's even started?
I don't know if it ended, but it's definitely pulled them back to the pack with everybody else. I think they were the clear favorite coming into spring training, but now with all the injuries, I think they're right back with the rest of them, and maybe even Boston passed them for the division. I think they're the better team right now in the division entering the season, but we'll see. You know, if Heel comes back and if Stanton comes back at some point, even if it's in July.
Will he come back? I mean, it's pretty serious. Since January, he hasn't even been able to lift anything.
Yeah. I think, you know what, I think it will be a big sign is if they do go out and sign somebody like J.D. Martinez, because basically he's the same player as Stan, right? They can't play the field. They can only hit. So if they sign him, that's kind of a sign saying, all right, Stanton ain't coming back, because they can't carry two DH-only guys. I mean, you just can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think Stanton's coming back. I mean, Rob, I know you're the Met guy, but this is serious news here that the Yankees looks like they're down more than a man.
Yeah, well, that is some tough news. I agree with Chris. I think, we might even have to put the Red Sox above the Yankees right now. My question is, Stanton supposedly knew about this in the beginning of the offseason. Why didn't he do anything about it?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was listening to your counterparts, the Pinstripe Chronicles, and I know Chris co-hosted on Sunday's show when they had him and Lynn, and apparently the Yankees knew about it. It wasn't just Stanton, the Yankees knew about it, and they had an opportunity to tell him to get the surgery, and you're partially right, Rob, but the Yankees also knew about it. That's my response.
Rob, I want to ask you.
No sense.
The Yankees, I know they were favorite going the year. Did this pretty much deter the year? Like, are they just going to be going downhill at this point, or?
I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna kill them for the season, but I think they've just, like, instead of being probably the favorite to get back to the World Series in the American League, now I think they're just one of the better teams in the league. Instead of the best team in the league, now they're just in the mix with everybody else. And I don't think they're the better team in the division right now. I think Boston has taken them over. I think they're a much more solid team, even though I like the Yankees bullpen more than I do the Red Sox. But Red Sox overall, pitching-wise, starting pitching-wise in their lineup, I do like them better. So we'll see. I still think the Yankees will make the playoffs. How far they'll get, it's really going to be.
Are the Yankees going to go out and add? I mean, you said DH. Okay, J.D. Martinez is out there. Maybe you'll get a bat. But what about starting pitching? Are you adding a veteran, a Johnny Cueto? You guys talked about somebody of that ilk. You guys,
Kyle Gibson, something like that. I mean, I look at it this way. Maybe somebody, becomes available in the next week or two before opening day. We see a lot of guys get cut right before opening day. They don't make their team, and that's the type of player the Yankees are going to add right now. They're not going to add a Dylan Cease or a Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, the Yankees. I mean, they didn't really address. They didn't address the offense, the pitching. They signed Max Fried. Remy Roberts has kind of got me confused because he said he's hurting as a Mets fan and a Yankees fan. So, which one are you? I mean, are you a
You
Mets?
can't be both.
Which one are you, Remy? I mean, you're a Mets fan or a Yankee? I mean, you're both.
Chris, can you be an Islanders and a Rangers fan, or
No, I think it's worse with the Islanders and Rangers. I think there are
people that
I think there are. See, I think there are some people in New York that are Met and Yankees fans because they didn't play each other for like 30 plus years the Mets' existence. The Islanders and Rangers, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can do
it's impossible.
Maria DeFalco says hello.
No, but Yankee Mets.
Yeah,
Yankee Mets fans, I never get that. No.
But I think, like Tom says, there are people out there that are like, I'm a New York fan. I like.
I think there are some. We'll talk. I'm going to talk WWE in about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to mix everything here in an hour. I'm going to definitely do that. So thank you, Zilla. And I know also he said autocorrect. Press Mets instead of Yankees. Well, that's a big difference there. So I guess then the Yankees, they're set where they are, but you don't think the sky is falling and the Yankees can still make the playoffs.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Last year we lost Garrett Cole right before the season started.
3 months.
So yeah, he was out. So now we're losing him for the whole season and probably half of next year. But as long as we get Lewis Heel back, I think that's a big one. If he comes back in say June or July, it won't be so bad. And if there's no more injuries, yeah, I still think they'll be a playoff team. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big blow though for the Yankees to lose
Absolutely.
Garrett Cole, and I mean, do you think he'll come back in his career? We've seen Jacob deGrom and his injuries from multiple injuries, but considering the stage that Garrett Cole is in his career, can he come back and be close to what he was prior?
It's possible. I mean, like you said, you brought up deGrom. We know him; he's hurt every year. But we also see other pitchers on the other side come back and they're fine. So.
Yeah,
I have to have faith that it's going to work out for him. Maybe he'll come back second half of the season next year, and then he's only got 2 more years after that on his contract. So, can he have 2.5, more years of his career that are, up there? Maybe not ace, but maybe a number 2 starter in the rotation. But I think it just shows you that the Yankees were concerned enough about Garrett Cole's elbow that they went out and signed Max Fried, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the Yankees didn't sign Max Fried, I mean, I think the sky would really be falling. And Remy wanted to add, which is kind of funny, my autocorrect has the Mets because my friends like the Mets. It gets typed a lot because we'll talk about the Yankees and the Mets. I'll probably bring Remy on here in a few minutes because we'll get the WWE guys in here for a little bit. I'm going to give everybody a shot here. But, yeah, I mean, look, it's a big blow, no question. It's a big blow right before the eve of the season. But like you said, listen, Cole missed the first half of the season. Yankees were able to tread water. Stanton really, has struggled for most of this contract. So, I mean, the Yankees are kind of where they were last year. But will they, the Pinstripe Chronicle guys were mixed. Bobby thought they would be between 81 and 85. I think Donald was confident they'd make the playoffs, and Rob Barros was confident, and Donald was not so much. So, I mean, we'll wind up and see. So we'll take that off the screen. But, all right, maybe we'll go into WWE for a few minutes. I got 2 guys here that are chomping at the bits for it. WWE is overseas. And, tell me what's ahead here. Tell me now that we're one step closer to the road to WrestleMania, and what's on you guys' mind tonight?
So, Tom, I just want to say this. Because of Netflix, I was able to catch some of the show earlier today when it was live. I know in the U.S. it's going on right now, but because of the earlier time, I was able to catch it live. And I just got to say this much.
Is that for both of you guys or anybody that watched on Netflix, or is that an international?
I think because in U.S., in the States, you only it's still on USA, where Canada, everything's on Netflix now.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. So all the programming that WWE has outside of the United States is on Netflix. Interesting. I did not know that.
But I'm just going to say that TBK, you can agree. Those international crowd, they put us to shame. Even
Oh my goodness,
they are just so loud and passionate. It makes us look like embarrassing. But I would say this much: the road to WrestleMania has picked up. We go to Monday at Madison Square Garden. What a show it was!
Yep.
The
Roman's back.
The tribal chief returning. My only problem with that is the triple threat match with Seth, Roman, and Punk. It needs to be for something. I don't care if like a number one contenders, whatever. It can't just be three guys wrestling. It needs to have some more meaning to it.
But it's three Heyman guys.
Seth was never a Heyman guy, was he?
Was he not? Wasn't he briefly Heyman? No. But okay, but it's three guys that hate each other, right? Three guys that have some intertwined history. Seth and Roman have the Shield. We know that Punk and Roman were basically Heyman's guys, and Seth and Punk have been fighting. I mean, do they need something to fight for? Do they need a belt? I mean, with the history that these three men have, do they need that?
Could fight over Heyman. I mean, to be honest, like we still don't know what the favor is. We know that Roman Reigns was extremely jealous seeing Heyman anywhere near Punk, let alone consoling him in the middle of the ring. I mean, right now, that would be the only thing I could think of is, does Heyman finally decide to leave the Samoan dynasty and go back to Punk for a little while? Other than that, I don't know about a belt.
I don't think it needs a belt, but just something like whether the person gets a championship match down the road or just something to kind of like solidify the match a little bit more. But because the rumor is it's supposed to could possibly main event night one. That's why I'm saying if it's going to main event night one, it needs to have.
You wouldn't have a women's match main event night one?
There's concerns with Charlotte and Tiffany's feud right now, from what I've heard. Last week, the crowd reaction was bad. This week, thankfully,
Charlotte people don't. I think people don't want to see Charlotte in a title match. That's your obvious answer, right? Wouldn't that be the answer?
Yeah, I have to agree with Randy about the international crowds, and I think that is why they got the response that they got, because these international crowds they're starved for it. So when they
don't come to WWE, doesn't come there much. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, we get it. You know, it's like Rob watching the Mets. I'll watch the next day. You know, I'll watch the Mets. All right.
When they get it over there, they are so appreciative. They're so loud. They're rowdy. They're passionate. They're appreciative of what they're seeing. I mean, for God's sake, Shinsuke had to go to freaking Barcelona to get some chance of his name. Like we were saying last week, the rumor had been going around that his contract is coming to an end here pretty soon and that he had decided not to re-sign, which apparently is not true at all. But after that dismal freaking U.S. championship run, if you even want to call it that, I like to call it a bunch of U.S. title promos and vignettes, because that's all it was. I wouldn't have blamed him at all if he decided to move on. But you go over to these international crowds and you get spoiled because these people are so grateful to see you.
It seems like it's the wave of the future these last few years. WWE has expanded their footprint internationally. I mean, sports has done that. I mean, right? We baseball plays the game in London. You know, Korea. You guys talked about it. And the New York MLB talk. Football has definitely done it. You know, Germany, the UK, the NHL has done it. And I think that sports, that's kind of the wave of the future. And WWE has done a lot of that. And I'm sure it'll continue to expand.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think so. It will. Now, going back earlier, Tom, the women's main event, would Rhea, Bianca, and Io possibly main event night one? I could see that one maybe.
Well, Bianca's an interesting one. I'll spend a few more minutes on wrestling. I'll bounce back to the other sports because I got to try to get everybody in. But it's interesting with Bianca now, with this whole thing with Naomi and Jade Cargill. And what do you guys think there?
I think it's great because sorry, TBK.
No, you're fine. You're good, buddy.
I think it's great because you're giving Bianca avenues to go down, because we still haven't seen her go one-on-one with Rhea. We know that the history with her and Io when they were part of Damage Control, and Io when Bianca was champion. You can go down the route of Jade possibly and Charlotte. Like there's Bianca right now, her branches are very spread out. So she has a lot of opportunities to go with.
Mm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
At this point right now, Jade looks like $1,000,000. They are doing so right by her. And it's about time. It's what we wanted from when she came here in the first place. She got off to a slow, rocky start, but this has absolutely revitalized everything going on for her right now. And you know what? It's giving depth to all three girls. You know, they're making Naomi out to be the jealous, bitter best friend right now. Bianca's caught in the middle. Jade's on the freaking warpath. She looks destructive. She looks great. Like Randy said, as long as they keep the momentum and keep it driving, it's kind of endless right now, and it's good. It's very good for all three of them because we said, sorry, Randy, we said before that we got tired of the same old Bianca. Bianca was becoming the next John Cena, always in the title picture. Always, you know, I want to see more from her. She's an amazing talent, and she doesn't always have to be in the title picture to be effective.
No, that's exactly right, TBK. I was going to say, because we saw with Cena. Cena, regardless of what was going on, he was always in the title picture. Bianca, like, there's so many different avenues. Like, she doesn't need to be right now. You don't have to throw her in there. Like, there's so many different avenues you can put her in that makes it work so well. One last thing with WWE, I just want to say Tuesday night NXT. I think we saw why this partnership with TNA is so important. We saw an outing by Moose. The Hardys still showing what they got it.
Yep.
And then it's working right now on all cylinders.
Yeah,
definitely, no question about that. And we are here on Sportswire. You got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick before we move on from WWE, just because
I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it toward the end. I'll give everybody a fair shot. Got it.
Just because St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner, I feel like it would be remiss not to mention this guy. Man, I have gained so much respect for JD McDonough. After finding out that he cracked his ribs, punctured a lung, still finished the match, and is working his ass off to return within the month. Gosh, if he doesn't come back to thunderous, I'm talking crazy pops, then you don't appreciate this sport. You don't appreciate what these men and women put themselves through. I watched an interview with him with Chris Van Vliet, or yes. Sorry. But just hearing him speak, hearing how passionate he is about this, and knowing the pain that he went through, and not only to be able to finish the match, but still hit the moves that he was hitting before the match was over. Tip of the cap, sir. I can't wait for him to come back.
Yeah, what these wrestlers do, it's just to me always amazing. And we are here on Sportswire Radio. We're here for about another 45 minutes. We'll have Mr. Darkhorn at 11 o'clock, but we're here right now with Randy Dillon, TBK, Chris Bazaya, and Rob Maraska. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. Here, gotta start using a VPN. I miss way too many SmackDowns. Well, that could be certainly a use of that. All right, so I'll come back to WWE in the end. But NFL free agency, some interesting moves. I see the Jets got a quarterback. I see some other teams made some other moves. And what did you think, Chris? What did you like of NFL free agency so far? You like the Jets getting Justin Fields, or what's your thoughts on that and some of the other things so far in free agency?
Yeah, I think with the Jets, I think they went for guys with, maybe not a proven track record yet, but more higher ceilings, right?
Youth.
Like more to these guys.
Youth, Chris. Youth.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, that's all they could do, because you're not going to sign one or two guys and it's going to be, okay, they're a good team now, right?
Yeah.
So they got to start rebuilding this team, reshaping this team. Offense has so many holes. Outside of the offensive line, okay, there's, right tackle, and then you got wide receiver. Outside of Garrett Wilson, there's nothing at wide receiver, right? Tight end, same thing. So they signed Smart for tight end. They still need to get like at least 2 more wide receivers. Defensively, there's holes there too. I know they signed the cornerback. We'll see how he. You know him a little better than I do. The corner they signed, but yeah, we'll see. It's definitely at least a 2-year process, maybe 3 for the Jets. I'm hoping only 2, and I'm hoping that Justin Fields can.
The third team he's gone to, right, in 4
Yeah.
years now. I mean, so
he's got the year. He's got the year now. He's got this year to prove himself. It's not going to be okay. You only got 2 or 3 games. He's going to have this whole season to prove himself, right? Because they paid him 2 years, $30 million, $20 million this year, $10 million next year. So it's going to be, hey, let's see what you got this year. We're going to base this offense around you, right? And let's see how we do.
Sam Darnold, right, is Seattle, and Daniel Jones. We were talking about this last night. We had we do this thing now where we get people come in and they talk for 10 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's less. Remy's been a part of it, and we talk about different things. At Tonight Show with Sportzwire, it gives everybody a chance to come on and talk, kind of like this, but you never know, it'll show up. And we're talking a lot about Daniel Jones because the Giants, people were saying in the chat, and Remy was saying it also, that he kind of got a raw deal in some aspects. They won the playoff game, but they never, you talked about the Jets not having talent offensively around Justin Fields. Well, the Giants never really had that in that aspect of it. And Daniel Jones had, no protection. And now he goes to another team where, maybe he'll get a chance to play, but maybe in an environment that can go out there and maybe the Colts can contend. Anthony Richardson gets a full year maybe to compete. He had some injuries. It's a weaker division, but the Giants, I don't really know the direction they're going. That's what we were kind of talking about on yesterday's show. What do you think about that?
To be honest, I didn't understand what the Giants were doing either, because they should have fired their GM and their head coach after this season. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were talking about. Remy said the same thing, that you're giving Dable another year, but you're not looking to win. What's the point of giving a guy another year? What's he go 2-15, 3-14? You're going to fire him anyway. What's the point?
That's why. And you're not going to turn this team around in one season. So they're expecting
no,
right, and be in the playoffs this year. They can't, because you got Philly still good, Washington probably going to be even better.
Washington made a big move. Yep.
Yeah. So how are they making the playoffs? They're third at best in that division. And that's saying that they're better.
I don't even think that. I think the Cowboys are a wide mile ahead of the Giants. I think the Giants are one of the worst teams in football. Whereas Daniel Jones, at the very least, he goes to a team that's competitive. I mean, I don't understand the logic.
I agree.
And Remy wanted to say the first fire. Well, he's calling it already. The first firing of the midseason will be Brian Dable.
But the Giants don't normally do that, right? They don't change.
Never. They never do that.
Chris, I want to say,
but
my brother, the Giant fan, I keep asking when they're going to do better. He's like, "Oh, next year." The way you sound, like I don't think it's going to be next year.
The Giant fan is paying for those 2. They're paying dearly for those 2 Super Bowl wins. I mean, they're going to be like in the bottom of the basement of the NFL for like years. That's why that one season they had with Jones, he didn't turn the ball over, got a playoff win on the road, and they got rid of Barkley. They didn't really have any other talent offensively, and that's kind of where they are at the moment. And then Sam Darnold goes to Seattle. So I have to ask, where does this leave Aaron Rodgers?
It's going to be either Pittsburgh or the Giants, right? Or maybe Cleveland.
I heard Minnesota might take a crack.
We were talking about that. Pro Football Talk was talking about that. I heard.
Well, didn't Pittsburgh just re-sign Mason? They re-signed Mason Rudolph. So
to start, though, you think, or is that more for?
I read an article. I don't know if it's correct, but I believe Russell Wilson went to the Giants for a visit and left without a contract. So I don't know if they're trying to shop him around or letting him poke his nose around right now. I certainly wouldn't want to have him as a starter, but I don't know if they plan on keeping Russell. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the Giants, I mean, if they couldn't get Russell Wilson, I mean, they're pretty much, odd man out. I mean, as for Pittsburgh, I mean, this is now your third quarterback in 3 years you're going for. So, I mean, Rodgers, I guess the debate is, okay, you're a win now team, but if you don't win, you're going back to the drawing board again. So is that the right move? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if him going to Minnesota makes sense because you got J.J. McCarthy.
Well, everybody wants him to go there so it can complete the Brett Favre,
The Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Does Rodgers really want that on his resume? You know?
Well, I mean, you can look at it though. He's going to a team that won 14 games last year. I mean, so if you're Rodgers, that might make some sense. I mean, Mike Florio was talking 2 days ago that it was kind of laughable a week and a half ago, but it actually could be more believable now. I mean, I don't know.
I just don't know. I mean, you got the young kid. You got J.J. McCarthy.
Maybe you want to give him another year, one more year to wait. Rodgers is not more than 1 year. It's more really like Rodgers to prove it. I mean, you can't expect Rodgers to get a multi-year deal.
No,
so you're
I think Rodgers' best shot is. I think Pittsburgh.
I just want to ask for the Vikings, like if Aaron Rodgers go there, is it more for them because I know they've been the talks for years. They think one of the better teams should go to the Super Bowl, just haven't. Like, is bringing a guy like Aaron Rodgers who's pretty much on his like downfall? Like, is that kind of the hope he can maybe pull out that Hail Mary to help them get back to a Super Bowl? Or
oh yeah, whoever he goes to, he's not going to like. He's not going to go to a bad team. He's going to go
to the Giants. I mean, you said Cleveland, but I don't know if Cleveland's really. I know they won they were in the playoffs 2 years ago, but I don't think they're more closer to where they were this year than last. But I think Rodgers. I mean, his options are pretty few at this point, right? Minnesota, Pittsburgh would be at the top of the list. I mean, I don't know Tennessee. Unless you want to go with Tennessee, but I think Tennessee's still a little bit behind.
I don't know if Minnesota's an option because. If they're gonna want J.J. McCarthy to start at some point, I mean, I don't think Rodgers would go there to start, say 7 games, and then J.J. McCarthy's going to take over week 8 or something. I don't think Rodgers wants that. He wants one more shot, a legit shot at a Super Bowl.
I think Minnesota is probably closer to the Super Bowl than Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's got to still deal with Kansas City. You got to deal with Baltimore. You got to deal with Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean, so off the bat, you got 3 teams that are ahead of you on the pecking board, and and that doesn't count other teams that like the Chargers that maybe another year under their belt with Harbaugh, maybe they make some moves to adjust. That was a team that 2 years ago was in the playoffs, came back this year, and had a bounce back season. So, I mean, there are a lot of teams that may be able to compete with Pittsburgh or surpass them. So I don't know if he's closer with the Super Bowl with Pittsburgh than Minnesota just because Minnesota won 14 games last year. I mean, listen, they got it.
I just don't know if he has a full season there. That's what I'm questioning. Like,
well, that's a really good point. Let me get to Remy. He's going to team Ayahuasca, however how you spell that.
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Wait, ayahuasca, are they in the NFL?
No.
I'm like,
yes.
Just a bit outside there to cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, they are.
Just a bit outside there. Just a bit outside. Neil Berliner one. Good old Neil Berliner. Yeah, that was a good.
That kind of funny stuff doesn't cross the border, so I don't know if it got.
Yeah.
Well,
really.
let's not tariff the comments anymore. We don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
That's up there. But all right, so we'll see. I mean, obviously, free agency continues. I mean, we'll see what the Giants wind up doing. You know, as crazy as it sounds, the NFL draft is about a month or so away. So I'm sure you and Sean are going to, you know, for a minute or two, Randy, I did want to talk hockey, and I'll come back to WWE and baseball to round out the second half of the show. But, you know, Islanders made a move. They did finally move Brock Nelson. They didn't do anything else. Rangers made some moves here and there. Devils obviously dealt with a tough blow, but Devils have had a nice week. But what's your thoughts on the trade deadline now that it came and went for a few minutes?
Well, the Islanders, Chris probably could tell a heartbreaking loss to the Oilers, where I don't know like how they were able to take that game into overtime, but they're 5 points out of the final wild card spot, but they need wins. It's a logjam for them. Like the Devils, they needed this because Columbus was firing up. They're with only a couple of points now, they put some distance between them. But that East race is just like if you don't win your game, you're going to fall out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, like you said, there's a lot of teams that are in it. There's a lot of teams that, I mean, you know, it's flip a coin.
And you know what? Have we seen a more disappointing 3 or 4 years than the Rangers have right now. Because the Rangers,
Two
they were
conference
set up
finals. Yeah, 2
4
conference
years
finals.
ago.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
team was set up to win a cup.
They were
right?
up 2-0 in 22. Yep, 2-0 go, and they were up 2-0 in Game 3 on Tampa on the road going into the second period. And then I think the rest of the series they scored like 2 goals. And then
Yeah, the Rangers are definitely disappointing. And right now, they're tied for the last wild card spot with Columbus, but they have a game less. They have the third toughest schedule going in this stretch. So
Columbus has played well. What a surprise Columbus has been, by the way.
I think it's been a true heartfelt moment for them if they make the playoffs with having Johnny Gaudreau. And maybe if they had Gaudreau, what could the season been for them? Like, you add him because it seemed like they've been trying to build a different team. But just the Rangers, like, it all goes back to that Tom Wilson incident where, yeah, they couldn't stand up to the toughness, but they made some mistakes. And this deadline, they shipped out half their D core. Like, I've never seen a team deconstruct their D the way the Rangers did. Just they're hoping and praying on the back of Shesterkin to make the playoff, but then you gotta hope he can carry you through the playoff because your defense is weak. Like, you look at some of the teams you're going up against. Like, if you have to play a team like Washington, okay, Shesterkin might can carry you, but their defense is much better. Or you have somehow you get the first wild card and you play one of the Florida, like, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I think that whoever gets that last wild card, you really think they're going to do anything? I mean, all these crapshooter teams, Columbus, the Rangers,
Florida.
Yeah, Columbus, the Rangers. You got Detroit, Montreal.
The Rangers are the only team just because of Igor. Like, I look at Columbus, I don't know if they have the experience. Montreal, like, they're in a dogfight and they're a little bit weak at center with the loss of Freddie Dog. Columbus is just really interesting because just how the team been and how Dean Evison is a head coach in Merlinski. We've seen him put on protective periods. And then Ottawa, I think, will be very interesting because, listen, we saw what Brady Tkachuk did at
they're the first wild card. I think Ottawa, has solidified themselves as the first wild card. Then after that, it's Columbus, it's Montreal, it's the Rangers, it's Detroit, it's the Islanders, and Boston, points-wise, mathematically, but they've played more games over everybody. Islanders picked up 1 point tonight, so that puts them 4 back. They've played the same amount of games as Columbus. I mean, the Islanders have been in this spot before. They found a way the last 2 years. I don't know if it's the same team, but
17.
They're there.
Think about it. 7 teams are within the last wild card spot by 6 points.
Yeah, you put Pittsburgh and although Pittsburgh and Philadelphia have played more games.
Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I pretty much think they're done.
Yeah, I would think they're done too.
Yeah.
I think to me, I would look at it and say it's Columbus, the Rangers, Montreal, Detroit, and the Islanders based on games because you've played 67 or 68 games at this point. You can't tell me. Yeah.
I would say for the hot seat, though, if you're Steve Yzerman and Chris Drury, you're feeling you have to make the playoffs to save your jobs because Yzerman, he has made some duds moves in Detroit.
Well, Detroit, this would be 8 straight years without a playoff spot for a franchise that was, I think, 20, almost 30 straight playoff appearances in a row to go 8. I mean, and last year they missed it basically on the last game of the season through overtime. So I mean, it's a team that's they've looked to put themselves in a position. I mean, Washington and the Detroit battle it out the last day of the season, and Washington gets in, Detroit doesn't, and this year Detroit's in the same spot. They're the Seattle Mariners of the NHL.
Right, exactly. And you look at some of the moves the Red Wings make, like shipping off Hronek to Vancouver. Look how well he's doing. Jake Wallman now in Edmonton, and he had a decent year in San Jose after trade. So Detroit, they've made mistakes. And I think Steve Yzerman may pay the price for the Rangers. Like, I talked to Billy McAfee, we did on our show. Chris Drury has pretty much has broken this team. And like, you look at some of how the players are being treated, how some of the players are going, like this team, like everything they worked for in that short kind of rebuild they did under Jeff Gordon, it's been demolished.
No, they were ahead of schedule. They got to the conference finals in 22, like I said. Then they took a little bit of a step back the following year. And then last year, they had the best record. But again, they fell short and lost again in the conference finals. So, we'll definitely see. But I do want to go to baseball for a minute. I want to say hello to Nathaniel Rage, who should have been here yesterday when James Taylor was talking about his promo. But maybe tune in later. But we'll get to that later. But I got to get to Rob Maraska for a few minutes. And I'll swing back into WWE for a few minutes and we'll get to final thoughts. But Rob Soto, who's got 4 home runs this spring, got to be excited.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's only spring, but he's swinging the bat.
You hear about Beatty, right? Beatty was hitting 440 or something like that. Berliner was down there, and he was talking about it on the podcast with you guys.
Yeah, Beatty's looked pretty good this spring. Listen, Clay Holmes was named starting pitcher, okay, for opening day. He's pitching great in Florida right now. I mean, and if you look at it, he's only started 4 games, and that was when he was a rookie for.
Well, Seth Lugo. I mean, listen, Seth Lugo went and became a starting pitcher, and look at what he's done with it. Well, he started, I think, a little more than Holmes, but some guys make that adjustment.
Yeah, and the Mets, the Mets have their share of injuries. Alvarez fractured his hand.
The Pittsburgh Chronicle guys, we're making sure to remind Met fans about that. Well, your catcher, I think Rob's words were Barros, not Maraska, that your catcher's out for 6 weeks. So don't talk about our team when your own team's got problems or something like that. Those Pinstripe Chronicle guys, you could tell they take each loss personal. They take like everything with Met fans personal. God bless those. God bless those guys. Chris, you co-hosted on there. And they used to join us here years ago on the podcast.
They're great guys. And listen, it is what it is. Both New York teams are getting killed by injuries early on. The Mets a little less, and they're getting their guys back. I mean, Manaea, you got great news this week with Manaea, so he'll be back soon. And
Alvarez will miss the first. He'll miss, probably most of the first month of the season. I mean, it's a blow, but I mean, on Flex Sports, though, I mean, listen, guys talk about the NFL, right? Guys sometimes get injured, and they miss the whole year. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, first snap, he's out.
You're going to get hurt. Now's the time to get hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's, in sports, that's the thing that happens. I mean, look, we talk WWE, and you just never know what could happen out there in the ring. I mean, guys.
I would think for me, like, at least when I look at the Yankees, the only positive when I look at it, as the rest of the American League is not that strong. The East, the Central, the West, there's good teams, but there's not teams that are, head and shoulders.
That's what baseball and sports, but that's what baseball and sports wanted. They wanted parity. And you look at baseball, right? Okay, in the National League, I know you guys did your NL preview show.
Yeah, you got a couple of really good teams in the National League.
You got the Dodgers, right? You got the Phillies, right? The Mets should be there. I think San Diego did make some moves at the end of the offseason.
Yeah.
I think they're still okay. You guys are high on Cincinnati. I think you guys are high on them.
I am, at least. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again,
Rob and Chris, I got to ask.
I don't know why.
The Blue Jays, how are they looking? Are we another bad year for them?
I don't know about the Blue Jays. I don't know, man.
Listen, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in Toronto.
I feel bad for them because they've been trying to, sign free agents. Nobody wants to go there.
Maybe they should have. Maybe they should have tariffed some of these other teams in America, and that would have worked. I'm serious. Maybe if they would have tariffed the other teams, they would have got all the players they wanted. I mean, listen, they're trying it in politics. I mean, maybe they tried in sports. I don't know. I'm surprised Sean Tate and Neil Berliner didn't come up with that joke.
Come play for us or else,
100%. I mean, I'm sure it'll work. The stock market,
the National League East. But in the National League East, it's going to be, like we said, Mets, Braves, Phillies. But like we talked about, the Phillies are getting older, and they really didn't do much.
Well, they didn't have to do much. But they didn't have to. The last 3 years, they've either been in the World Series, the LCS, or the DS, and their team still have star power. I think the general point is the National League has stronger teams. You got strong. Whereas the American League,
They have the Dodgers.
you look at the American League, it's a lot of parity. It's a lot of middle of the pack teams. Do you believe in Cleveland again? I don't know. Detroit people are.
I think that whole Central is going to be good. Outside of the White Sox, those 4 teams are going to be.
But that's like Major League. But that's what
That's
baseball won. You got 8 or 9 teams in the American League who you could all say, could make the playoffs, and then you got your Chicago. You've got the Angels, right? They're going to be both bad. Tampa's probably going to be bad, right? And then well, actually, speaking of which, I guess they don't have a ballpark to play for much.
No,
sooner, right?
Yeah, right.
I gotta ask you for baseball with Tom. You talk about this parity, how they wanted to average. Did they kind of mess up playoffs because then it's because I know they have the play-in games and all that, but didn't really mess up playoff because some of these teams are pretty average and they get the playoff and they get smacked pretty much and the series are done.
I would disagree with that. The D-backs backed into the playoffs a couple of years ago and got to the World Series. I mean, baseball, way they've made it is if you just make the playoffs, not like the NFL, you're the last wild card, you're going nowhere really for the most part. But in baseball, you get in. Listen, the Phillies and the D-backs, 2 of the last 3 years were last teams in and went to the World Series, and the Mets were last team in, and look at what they did. I mean, so I think with baseball, that you just get in, it's a crapshoot. I mean, look at unfortunately for TBK, the Orioles, right, were one of the best teams in baseball and got swept by the Texas Rangers. Rangers were a team that, got into the playoffs at the very end of the season and won the World Series. So baseball, it doesn't matter. I think the records, unlike these other sports, you just throw them out the window. That's what they want. But the NHL is like that. Look at how many teams in the NHL, right, we've seen. How about the Kings, right? The Kings were a last wild card and won the Stanley Cup one year. And, you had Edmonton years ago had 87 points, went to the 7th game of the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, we've seen what the Islanders did backing into the playoffs in a bubble year. I mean, got to the conference finals 2 games away from the Stanley Cup. I mean, it doesn't matter as much in sports, except the NBA, where they play this convoluted play-in, then they play a play-in tournament, they play an in-season tournament. And let me say hello to Joe Dell. How you doing, Joe Dell? Yep. And Remy wanted to say, Mets stole Soto from the Bronx. I hope he's terrible for you. Yeah, that's the spirit, Remy. Wish everybody's terrible. Maybe that'll be the next promo in TPW. Speaking of the TPW champion, Nathaniel Rage is here, who's got a match with James Taylor. I'll get to that in a different show. But let's come back to WWE for a few minutes. I got the baseball talk and I got NHL. So, I mean, obviously, what else you guys want to throw out there for the audience when it comes to WWE?
Yeah, I got a question. A quick
Good.
question.
Go for it. I love it.
What is the end game with Cena?
Good question. You know what? I was going to go right into that. That's a great question. Let's talk about
damn, Chris.
That's real.
Yeah. I think the end game is he's going to win his 17th title. Yes. It's just, where do you give it to him? Do you give it to him at WrestleMania? Maybe
somebody wants to talk about it, but go ahead.
And then, Remy, you set it up where you did it with Roman when he won the belt. He went on this, obviously he's not going to go on a title run of 1,300 days, but do you kind of set up where he wins the belt and he had that kind of a couple of month run as champion, or do you give it to, or do you let Cody win and then you have to find a way to end his reign with it seems the time is coming for that. So I don't know which way they're going. The only thing, if they give it to Cena, you have to make sure the right guy beat him, otherwise it's pointless. Because I'm going to say this, I get a lot of slack for this. I agree Lesnar was the right person to beat the streak because there was no one better at the time. If it was Roman at the time that beat Taker's streak, it would have been horrible. You need the right person to beat Cena, and I don't know who that person would be.
As the New Orleans guy, having Lesnar beat the streak in my city, it was definitely not the right person. It would never be the right person.
Well, looking back now, I mean, with everything that's happened to Lesnar outside the ring, it's a definite,
All right.
I wish I could have that one back.
So being the Taker guy.
That was not something I was going to elevate him.
But Remy, would you been fine with Roman at the time being the big dog winning that? I want to ask, would you have been fine with Roman as the big dog character, his persona at that time being Taker streak?
No.
Yes, because this was before he really started to get that uber mega bullshit push.
Tom Maraska's complex. is very affordable to live in.
Absolutely.
Rob, I'm going for you. You better
Okay,
beat
all
it.
right, all right.
Before
So
Roman was getting that uber mega push in like 2016, this could have really been something that truly pushed him into the upper echelons and that's when they could turn him heel. That's when they could actually give him that heel push that he needed, rather than waiting all the way until 2020 to finally turn him into something more natural as a heel. Having him beat the streak would have really pushed him and elevated him. But like I said, it was definitely not Brock. Brock didn't need it. Brock didn't need that to elevate him. Because look where Brock was already at. He was a multi-time champion at that point.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
TBK. Go ahead.
So I agree on one thing. Brock should not have beaten the streak. Brock was not supposed to beat the streak. That was a Vince McMahon call. It was a last-minute call, and when Taker showed up to the arena that day, he was under the impression that he was going over. In my opinion, respectfully, respectfully, nobody should have beaten the streak. That streak should have remained untouched. It was special. It was unique to Taker. Roman
And there will never be
proved
another one.
exactly. Roman proved to be what he was going to be only a couple short years down the road. So he 100% was always in him. It was just getting it out of him that they needed to do, which they finally did when they put him with Heyman. Brock, no. Brock did not need it. Taker has gone on record to say Brock didn't need it. Chris, to answer your question, the end game was Cena. Thank you, Joe. The end game was Cena. Absolutely, he should win 17. Why? Because, like I said, you're keeping I'm going to say it. I don't give a damn. You're keeping a dinosaur's record alive. Ric Flair is irrelevant at this point. Cena is still active. Cena is still relevant. Cena deserves it. Down the road,
didn't Robert Roscoe saw Ric Flair win his first title or live?
Probably. Absolutely.
Probably, yeah. I mean, right?
And let's put it this way, guys. Let's put it this way, guys. Flair has been out of the WWE for God knows how long. When is the last time that we saw Flair in the WWE?
I think he had a segment. No, it's not that long.
No, it's not that long.
He had a segment back in what, 2018?
No,
2021.
No, 21.
It 21 Raw during COVID with Randy Orton. No, it's 4 years.
That awful Lacey Evans segment where she was gonna be pregnant and stuff.
That's 4 freaking years, and all the guy does is come out, yell woo a few times, and
but he's
his
still
80-year-old ass back into the gorilla position.
You are the Cajun Bruiser, but he is still Ric Flair. But I think the point
he's still Ric Flair. But at the same time, why are we keeping that record alive?
Well,
that's
a great question.
So many more eyes to the WWE.
Well, that's a better question. That I agree with you on.
In the back of his mind, even Ric Flair knows that Cena. Hey, hold up! In the back of his mind, even Ric Flair knows that streak should be beaten by Cena, because, like I said, Cena. He's still there. He's still a face, and he's in a major angle right now. Let him have the belt.
Absolutely.
I'm Chris. Like I said, on down the road, Cena absolutely. Now Cena should go out by somebody who is a rising star. Who's that? Like CM Punk has said a million times that he wants to retire Cena, and whether or not they're on the same page with that, we don't know.
Is it Braun Breaker? That's maybe a.
I would love to see that. I would love
Braun
to
Breaker,
see that.
Definitely.
Yes.
Jacob Fatu could be another one. You look at
100%.
Yeah. I don't think he's leaving NXT anytime soon.
I'm
going to go a little hot
about
here.
A week and a half ago, we had Alpha Zoe, who just debuted in Ring of Honor, and he trained with Jacob Fatu in addition to Tarzan Duran. And Alpha Zoe said that he thinks that Jacob Fatou is going to go. He knows Jacob Fatou personally. He spoke about him here.
Awesome.
Yeah, he trained with him in California and Oasis Pro Wrestling, and they showed up. Actually, Jacob would help. Alpha as a trainer would help him with some of the students, and he said that Jacob he thinks is going to be ready to be at even a bigger level, and they knew right away. So Jacob Fatou could be a name. Obviously we know the history with Solo. That would be interesting. Braun Breaker is a name that comes up. Did you want to say, Remy, before we move on here?
I'm gonna go a little hot here. I personally want to see someone like Montez Ford get that singles push, and I want to see what he can do with the strap around his waist, man. And I like what they're doing now, giving the Profits back their World Tag Team Championships. But at the same time, man, like I'm ready to see what Ford can do on his own.
Well, we saw a couple years ago, right in the chamber. You had that moment. Sometimes it takes time. Look at Jay. I mean, Jay, it took him time.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can really do with Montez Ford, because I think that he's functioning on maybe 30-40% of what his full potential can be. And the second that they give him that push, he is going to be something incredible.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because sometimes guys in the tag team scene, you never know what they're going to put out there. Let me say hello to Casey Jack Bradley. Casey,
yeah, I just hope that when they do give that man his singles run, they don't forget about Dawkins, because Dawkins is a really good big man. He's super agile. He's super fast. He can move around in that ring better than most big guys can. I just hope that when they push Montez, it's not a letter saying, "Hey, we wish you well on your future endeavors" to Dawkins, because Dawkins.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. They just got the tag team title, but let me give everybody a shot for 60 seconds on something they want to discuss before I get to closing thoughts, because I got to wrap the show up here soon. So let me give everybody a shot. 60 seconds. You could talk whatever you want to throw out there. Go with Rob Maraska first. Rob, what would you like to say or get off your chest or talk about for the audience until next week? I give you 60 seconds.
Yeah, real quick, I'm just going to talk about another injury on the Mets. Jeff McNeil again. Listen, this may be the end of Jeff McNeil as a Met starter.
Ernest Dove will be sad. Ernest Dove will be sad about that.
Yeah, I like Jeff McNeil, but you know what? We got these kids. Beatty's playing pretty well. Let's give them a shot. He's just not what he was when he led the National League in hitting. And I like Jeff McNeil, but he hasn't done anything. He didn't do much last year. He's hurt again. I just think it's time to give some of these kids a shot.
Yeah, I think Acuna, certainly you liked what you saw. You guys talked about him last week on the show. And yeah, McNeil, it's the last couple of years he's definitely struggled here. TBK, let me give you 60 seconds. What do you want to get off your chest?
Oh, boy. All right. So as of tonight, we saw we got the Ray Phoenix and the Malachi Black teases. They're on the way. Can't wait. Now, the only thing I will say about the Ray Phoenix thing is, obviously, from everything I've heard, the move that they're going with is to immediately put Ray with Penta, which I don't know how I feel about it. And Randy, I want to see what you think. And maybe you can touch on it when your 60 seconds comes. But I think that they're kind of stifling Penta's run as a singles competitor, which has been great. He's done fantastic on his own. I think it's kind of a little bit of a cheap move to just throw them back together so soon, but I digress. Now, real quick, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my boys, so I'm going to. Rob, Chris, the Ravens, they just signed D-Hop. Is this the team that gets Lamar over the hump? D-Hop is coming in like an Anquan Bolden. Lamar has more weapons. He's weaponed up. He's got more weapons than he's ever had before. If he doesn't do it this year, what is the narrative on Lamar Jackson, given all the weapons he has? And last one, Justin Tucker. What do we do about that? We still got a couple months until preseason. We got plenty of months until camps start rolling around. But innocent until proven guilty, or do we cut our losses and move on?
Well, I'll say this: if they don't win it this year, the Lamar it's going to keep. The thing about Lamar is just going to keep going. He can't win the big game, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and I think this is the year to do it because Kansas City might take a step back, right?
Sure.
You got another. You got again. These guys are a year older, right? Travis Kelce does not look like the same guy all year, right? So
KC was already taking a step back this year, where they barely managed to get 30 points all but one game, and that would be the AFC Championship game. I think if there's ever a time for Lamar, if there's ever a time for Baltimore or Buffalo or one of these other teams, the Bengals, to finally get over the hump and do what only the Bengals have been able to do, which is beating the Chiefs to get into the Super Bowl.
Sure.
This is the year. Lamar has everything laid out at his disposal. He has a pretty damn good defense. He has D-Hop, one of those aging but still really productive wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Derrick Henry. It is time to put some points on the board, turn the table, change the narrative about Lamar, and finally make those MVPs worth it.
Now, I will definitely resume that next week. I gotta move on. I gotta move on. I gotta move on.
He's got to carry the ball in January. He's got to be the guy. Forget about that.
He's got to be the guy.
I do, in the interest of time, have to move on. Thank you for some of those thoughts, and I'm sure we'll resume some of that. Guys can jump in with that. Chris, I'll give you 60 seconds. Anything you want to share or get off your chest before we go to closing thoughts?
Yeah, just with the Yankees, man. I'm excited about opening day. I can't wait. Rendon has already been named opening day starter against the Brewers, so looking forward to that. It's coming, we're less than 2 weeks away, which is great. Next week, the Cubs and Dodgers open up. Finally, some regular game in Japan, so that should be cool too to see. I'm just waiting for baseball season to start, man. I got a baseball draft on Sunday in my keeper league. I'm excited about that.
Good.
But other than that, football season just keeps rolling, man.
Yeah, football, you know what? Football is a 24/7 thing. It used to be years ago, like 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, when the Super Bowl ended, nobody talked football until like July. Now, people talk football every day. It's
right.
Sure.
It's surpassed baseball. I know baseball still got that, but football is a 24/7, 365 year-round sport that people talk about. It used to not be that way.
Yeah.
The NFL was a sport. Again, the Super Bowl ended. You didn't talk about it until like August. Now everybody talks about free agency, the draft. They talk about camp, mini camp, and that's how it goes. But Remy, I give you 6.
You mentioned the Bengals, right? The Bengals got to get their guys signed. If they don't get their guys signed, Joe Burrow's going to be like, "Yo, what am I doing here?"
Yeah, they were talking about that on the radio. Like, what is the direction of the Bengals? What is the direction of?
You don't want Burrow to be upset because he's
they're going to have to win.
That's all they got. Yeah.
And now they're going to have to win 50 to 45 shootouts, and that's what they're. That's a really good points there. Remy, I give you 60 seconds. What would you like to get off your chest here before I get to closing thoughts?
Okay, when I was fantasy booking WrestleMania, when I was fantasy booking the John Cena retirement tour way back in October, what I had Randy winning the Rumble. That is hard to pronounce. I had Randy winning the Rumble. I had Punk winning Elimination Chamber, going on to beat Gunther at Mania. And then what if Cena doesn't have to win the big WWE title? Maybe what should happen, what I wanted to happen, was Money in the Bank comes around and Cena and Punk had that all-time classic, just like they did in Chicago at Money in the Bank. Cena gets his hand raised. Cena gets that 17 title. He rides off into the sunset. Now there's a lot more questions than answers, and that's what I love about wrestling. Because when you have one of those situations where there's more questions than answers, there's always going to be something fun delivered. At least now in this new Triple H era.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Casey Jack Bradley, definitely wishing you luck there in Fountains Church, Bradford Wrestling. And I know that Shelby Sinar will do a great job with you there. Randy, I give you 60 seconds. What would you like to get off your chest here before next week?
For sure, Tom. Thanks. Tanto TBK question quickly and Ray Phoenix. I think the problem with Ray Phoenix is if you want Penta single run to keep going, Ray Phoenix got us on the sideline, then he's just sitting there. Unless you put him on SmackDown or NXT, I think they want to put these two together because that's what they're made of. Now, I want to talk about AEW. Listen, they had a great show on Sunday, Revolution. I thought it was impressive, but their Dynamite was so slacking. This is the problem with AEW, Tom, we've always talked about. They can't follow up. They can't continue the stories. And we saw an example with Harley Quinn. Not Harley Quinn. No, not Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn. She had a great thing going. Harley West. She had a great thing going on. Her persona, they made her Harley Graham. Like it's just like she had something going, a connection with the fans. You ruin it. The last thing is, I know I'm over 60 seconds. This is both with WWE and AEW. Overselling of finishers and moves. AEW does it much more, but WWE we saw on Monday, even last week with Chelsea Green, went coast to coast, Michin kicked out right away. We saw on Raw, Punk and Raw, these guys kicked out finishers so much. I don't mind if you do a finisher, you have to wait a couple of minutes, but when you do a finisher, you cover someone right away, you do it again, it just it doesn't make it look good. I think they need to get back to that story selling or give it that time to sell to catch our breath. Thanks, Tom.
Excellent stuff. That's great stuff. Yeah, Harley Cameron, I had mentioned that. Let's get to closing thoughts here. Going with you, Rob, first. I'm going to pass the baton to you. I'll put your X up here, and floor is yours.
Thanks. Great show, guys, as usual. Real quick, TBK, listen, Lamar's got the weapons this year. He's got to get over that hump. He's got to get over that hump. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Next week on Tuesday, on NYMLB Talk, we're going to have guest Rick Lewis, who is in spring training with the Washington Nationals, the Baltimore Orioles, the Yankees, and the Detroit Tigers. So I'm looking forward to talking to Rick about spring training. That's it, guys.
Great stuff there. We'll certainly see, and we'll have that conversation continue next week. Chris, I give you the baton. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to plug, share, or say while I put your X up?
Thank you, Tom. Guys, great show as always. Like I said earlier, looking forward to opening day in a couple of weeks. And the first games are going to start on the 18th. Looking forward to that as well. Once baseball starts, winter's over. So
yeah, it hasn't been too bad recently. I mean, winter it's ending good. It wasn't a great winter, but the last week and a half, other than like a couple of days with the wind here in New York, it's been pretty pleasant.
Yeah, and you know what? It wasn't as bad because we didn't get a lot of snow this year. So again,
no, we didn't get snow. It was prolonged cold, but
yeah,
good point.
We'll take it. But anyway, looking forward to that, and the rest of the offseason for the Jets and the Eagles too. So we'll see how it goes, but that's about it.
Great stuff there. I'm going to go with you, Remy, next. I'm going to give you the floor. You got closing thoughts.
All right. Great show. Thanks for having me as always, man. Can't wait to get that Hall of Fame induction.
Soon, but
what I'll say so far about just the WWE, I'm interested to see what they do with John Cena. They have to do something good because I feel like if they miss on this run, whether they give him the belt or they don't give him the belt, they're going to give him the belt eventually. I feel like if they miss on this, then they squander everything that this whole retirement tour was for. As for Lamar and Baltimore, they have to get over the hump this year or next year. I don't even think there's going to be a next year. This has to be this year. With all the weapons that he has, there's no more excuses. It's the brightest lights, the biggest stage. He's got to do it this year. And then as for baseball, please, God, Yankees, do something. I've been miserable since
if you're wearing a Dodgers cap and a Brooklyn Dodgers jersey, because Rob Morosco was
I'm wearing the 42.
Rob Morosco was probably there in Ebbets Field. He probably was there.
When the field was made, Rob was like laying up the cement and stuff.
I had to have a Jackie jersey somewhere in my repertoire, man.
Yeah,
everybody's got to have a Jackie jersey.
And Ebbets Field now is it's the Ebbets Field houses. Maybe you should go.
I'm only wearing the Dodgers cap because it matches, because naturally Dodgers and Dodgers.
Yeah.
But this was actually a gift. I will never spend money on that team.
Well, you know what? Everybody else seems to spend money on them. Thank you, Remy. You were on
All right.
Instagram. Give you that. And TBK, I'll go with you. Closing thoughts. Floor is yours. I'll put your Instagram up while you do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Great show as always, guys. Thanks for having me. I mean, I have to talk about the Wyatt Six real quick. Man, I've been hearing a lot of things that apparently they're not planning on using them until WrestleMania. Having a big push with Alexa Bliss. I just think it's foolish at this point. If Bo is cleared, they need to reintroduce the Wyatt Six back on TV. You've got to get the interest rolling for them again. I totally agree with you guys being a Baltimore Ravens fans. Yes, this is the year. Lamar is absolutely weaponed up. He's got everything at his disposal, and it goes to show that apparently Derrick Henry has a lot of influence on the team already, because Derrick Henry is not only getting apparently the contract extension, so we're trying to keep him for a couple more years. But apparently he made the push to get D-Hop. D-Hop should have been a Raven 3 years ago. I just hope it's not too little too late. Also, the Be More Talkative podcast should be back very, very soon. Look out for an episode with Ox McCoy and Soldier GP.
Cool. We'll definitely check that out. And Instagram, definitely go give a follow. Randy, you got the last word tonight. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure. Chris, Rob, TBK, Remy, great to see you all. A couple of notes here quick with Alex Ovechkin. Listen, 16 games left. He needs 9 goals. He still has time. I said before he needed a goal every second game, but he didn't score his last game. So we'll see if he can get a couple of goals here and get rolling again. WWE, excited to see. We're going to hear from John Cena on Monday. I think the world is excited to see this. They've been building up. Cody's done a good job calling him out, so it's very exciting. Finally, I'll wrap it up quickly on AEW, Mark, and I just feel for AEW. Their one big draw right now that can really help them get in the right direction is Kenny Omega, especially him coming out with the diverticulitis, and I feel like him winning the international title doesn't do much. I feel if you can get him the world title, because that's when AEW was at best, when Kenny Omega was a world champion. If they can't get back, they can't do it with him. I don't know who's going to be able to carry that company, because MJ had to fall flat, Hangman's other. Kenny Omega is really that one true draw they have. And if they fail, it's not going to work. Hockey fan chat, we're going to hopefully get a fan out here soon and have an episode in April. Possibly talk to a Sabres fan, and I know they'll have a lot to say.
You should certainly talk to me one day, but I don't have time to go on the podcast.
Yes, good time. Always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that's Randy's Instagram. Give him a follow. The birthday boy is here. We'll be with him in about 15 minutes or so, about 15, 20 minutes. We'll be with him, and we'll get his side of the story. And definitely, we ran the gauntlet. We had some fun. It was definitely an enjoyable episode. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this. I'll be here. We'll use the hockey line change, and I'll see Mr. Darkon in about 15 or 20 minutes. There is Remy Roberts. I still can't get over you wearing a Los Angeles Dodgers hat and a Brooklyn Dodgers jersey. But Remy's not 80 years old.
Fine. I will go grab my Yankees hat.
No, listen, I really don't. You can wear whatever you want. I think it was interesting. Thank you, Remy. TBK, Chris Bazziah, look at this in the New York MLB talk. Rob,
is everybody happy now?
Remy, you could do whatever you want. I just thought it was interesting. And then Randy Dillon, of course, the host.
Tom, I gotta ask quickly, Rob, were you at the first ever Madison Square Garden show when they built that arena? Because I know that's so much history.
Yeah, in the new one, in the old arena, the old Madison Square Garden.
That was a good one, Randy. That was a good one. And Maria DeFalco weeps. Maria DeFalco weeps, but not to be confused with Robert DeFalco of DeFalco Reality there, the man that's pretty much sold out half of Staten Island in Brooklyn. But I leave that at that. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. No, I didn't say that, but thank you, Jodo. Yes, stay blessed, everyone. I'll be here in about 15 or 20 minutes. And until then, thank you to TBK, Remy Roberts, Randy Dillon, Chris Bazziah, and Rob Maraska. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, and I'll see you here shortly on Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station where all wrestling matters, all sports matters, and all King's X matters. And stay tuned next Friday. Randy Jackson of Zebra. So you'll see what happens there. But until then, I'll see you in